El Paso.
What will we say to the world? From the KELP studio in El Paso, this is 915 Talk.
And now your host.
Good afternoon, beautiful citizens of the Borderland. This is 915 Talk, and I am your host, Andy Frecka. Today we are broadcasting from the heart of the world's largest borderplex. We're here at the KELP radio studio in a beautiful neighborhood in central El Paso. And today we have Kenny on the board. Kenny on the board, how you doing this afternoon?
Working hard for my money.
Yeah, I know, right? We've I think some of our listeners noticed this morning we had some technical issues.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, last Thursday night we had some technical issues, and Kenny on the board was heroic. He was running the station manually, I think 2 weekends in a row.
Was that why you bought me a sword and a shield?
A sword and a shield, yes. But and then we had some rainstorms, and our AM towers are in an El Paso water ponding site. And our engineer went in his hip waders out to the AM tower yesterday.
Poor Glenn.
And he came to the studio a little bit displeased after that because the water was deeper than his hip waders.
Oh, no.
But it's been quite the journey for us. Appreciate all you listeners joining with us, listening, praying for us. We're also in the process of revamping a lot of our computer system, our automation system. It has been a busy all hands on deck kind of week, but that's not what we're talking about today on 915 Talk.
No, it's not.
What are we talking about, Kenny, on the board?
I'm not sure what the pastor's got in store for us. I heard something about Paul Bunyan.
Yeah, well, that's going to be a different time.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you the difference between Paul Bunyan and John Bunyan. Do you know the difference, Kenny, on the board?
Paul Bunyan was a fictional character that was like 300 feet tall, something like that. John Bunyan is something you name one of the bunions on your feet.
Okay. Well, we're not talking about John Bunyan today, but we're going to talk about something else. We're going to talk about what happens when a pastor gets really old.
Ooh.
What's the church supposed to do? Oh, I saw a reaction from Mac Daddy Del Norte. Do you have some thoughts on what happens when the pastor? No thoughts. He's just shaking his head. He has pled the fifth, and we have a very good friend of this radio ministry in the station today. He is the voice on what is the name of the radio program? Kenny on the board.
On Better News Radio.
Yeah, that's right. Very good. Very good. He's a pastor of Cross of Grace Church. You hear him every day during your lunch hour at 12:30 p.m. on this radio station, and we're going to be talking about leadership transitions in the church. And he's fresh back from a sabbatical, so I think he's ready to rock and roll. So we're going to get right into it. Without further ado, let's give a very warm Borderland welcome to the one, the only, Pastor Ricky Alcantar.
Thank you, Andy. It's great to be here, man.
Yeah, it's always fun to have these conversations, Pastor Ricky. So you just had a sabbatical. Mm-hmm. What is the purpose of a sabbatical?
Man. Well, so sabbatical is something that we implemented a number of years ago. Can I tell you the story, actually, of why we started doing sabbaticals? Because I would recommend that anyone involved in strenuous, significant ministry, especially full-time ministry, occasionally pull away for the purpose of study and kind of refreshment and recalibrating their heart and mind for ministry. I
love that idea, but my towers are drowning in an El Paso ponding site.
You got to wait till it's not monsoon season, brother. This is not your sabbatical time. But yeah, years ago, it's going to lead into leadership transitions, because years ago I was on vacation with my dad, and my dad and mom and our family we were out in California together, and we decided, you know what, let's go to church. We don't have any responsibilities. I love going to church without responsibility.
Okay.
So we show up, we find a church nearby, seemed like a good church, had some of our same values. We show up, and worship was great. People were friendly. And then it's one of those meetings where the pastor, he comes to the front of the church and he goes, hey, normally this is where I would preach a message, but there's something we need to talk about.
Oh,
and
no.
so he actually, that's what I'm thinking. Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
This isn't good. And so he brings a chair out. He moves the pulpit, brings a chair out, sits in the chair, and he's like, all right, guys, I need to talk to you guys, And he basically just describes how he'd planted the church a decade earlier, and was starting to get burnt out. He was starting to get physical symptoms. He was starting his health was suffering, a number of other things, and he kind of broke down. And I just thought, oh my goodness. And so they announced, hey, he's going to have to take a break for a while. And
was that decided on the spot, or that was?
I hope it was decided beforehand. I hope so, because the reality is, being in ministry is it puts some years on you. You know, it puts some tread on the tires.
Right.
And if you don't have healthy rhythms of work and rest, and if you're not thinking through what we're about to talk about, which is healthy transitions from one maybe job description or position to the next, what happens is you run into the ground. And I remember an older, more experienced pastor telling me, either you're going to rest proactively or you're going to rest when you don't want to rest and when it's not convenient because you just crash and burn.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning you're going to rest now, you're going to rest later.
Yeah.
And you're going to and so ever since then, our pastors at church have designated a particular schedule for every few years. You take some time off, and so that's what I was able to do. Love getting to do that. Got to spend a couple weeks, as we said, studying John Bunyan, which we'll talk about I think next month.
Yeah, and we'll be talking about that in August. And not about the bunions that form on your foot.
Not about those bunions.
And not about the legendary lumberjack.
Nope, not about him either.
Or the Pilgrim's Progress guy.
Yes, that guy.
Yeah.
And it's funny, leading into our conversation today, we're talking about leadership transitions, and one of the challenges is that leadership transitions are kind of like those sabbatical or rest periods where leadership transitions are gonna happen, and so you can either think about them now, or you can think about them too late.
After they've already happened.
Right, after you're realizing, oh my goodness, we don't have a plan for a leadership transition. Right. So what we want to do today is try to equip people to think ahead about these topics.
Yeah, and sometimes, Ricky, we have financial planners on, we have real estate consultants, sometimes we have, and I do this disclaimer, I say, nothing in this broadcast is in any way to be construed as legal or medical advice. We're just two guys talking.
Yep.
I want to do a different one today.
Okay.
Nothing that is said in this broadcast should upset you too much. We're just two guys talking. Because I think when it comes to leadership transitions, it can be a very touchy subject.
Oh, sure.
So I would just encourage a listener just to listen to some of the ideas, pray about them, particularly if you do have some form of leadership in your life, and remember that God offends the mind to reveal the heart.
That's good, brother.
I just think this can be, it's interesting how this should be a really normal conversation, but really when it comes to leadership position, I'm going to say right away, we can idolize it to the point we won't let it go.
Oh, sure.
Out of our lives.
Oh, sure.
And so I would just encourage a listener, just relax, listen, let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation, because having healthy leadership transitions in our churches in the borderland is part of building a strong church that will really reach our community.
Absolutely. And I think the first thing I'd say about this is leadership transitions are biblical. Like planning for what will happen after you is a biblical thing.
Yeah, so here's the thing, Pastor Ricky, I'm going to use an example, Old Testament. Which king of Israel had his son take over the kingdom while he was still alive? How many kings?
Oh, man. That's a great question. I've never studied that.
Yeah, so as far as I know...
Okay, so tell me.
It was only...
Don't teach Bible stories. Don't teach Bible...
Kenny on the board, what are you doing? Kenny on the board, come on. Yeah, back to what...
I thought that was the Lord breaking in or something. It's just Kenny.
Just Kenny on the board. He's back there. I don't know what he's doing. So as far as I know, and if you're listening and I'm wrong, please go on Facebook, KELP Radio, tell me how I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure only David had his son become king while he was still alive, because all the others is like he died and then his son took his place.
Well, and in many ways David did that because there was disunity and conflict that was about to result. And so he was trying to, in a sense, get ahead of that,
right,
by designating who was supposed to take over.
And the other thing was, he knew that he would not in his lifetime complete everything he wanted to do.
Oh, that's so true.
With the temple.
Yes.
The building of the temple.
Yes.
And so God said, your son's going to do this. You're not going to do it. And he had to let that go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which I think is one of the places to start with leadership transitions, is recognizing it's not often an easy thing.
Right.
To let go of maybe a position or a place or a way of service that the Lord has been using us for.
Right.
And this is where I'm gonna flip the tables and talk to you, Andy, because you,
Pastor Ricky,
you have actually had to walk through this. And
right.
We'll talk a little bit about mine in a minute.
Right.
But you've had to walk through this. Did you experience some of that? But what were you? Maybe give us some background. What were you doing before?
Yeah.
And
So I was part of a missionary organization. I was a national leader. I was overseeing about 80 full-time missionaries in 13 cities in the world's biggest country in Russia.
Wow.
And it's interesting because I became very uncomfortable with that. And I thought, I've been doing it for 12 years. That's a pretty good stint. I need to step out, need to see younger people take it on. And this is what some older leaders in the mission told me. They said, you're going to become very sad, essentially, is what they were saying. You won't understand your purpose in life if you don't do this. You're going to wake up in the morning and people won't be writing you emails asking for advice.
Oh, wow.
How will you live?
Oh, wow.
And I thought, I thought our identity was in Christ alone.
That's good, brother. That's a good word.
But
yeah,
it's worth considering what you're saying. I don't know. And it's also worth noting that I don't know of a single person under my leadership who wanted me to step aside. But I thought it is so unhealthy to continue on. Even if that's what everyone wants. And they were kicking and screaming and very unhappy with it. In the end, it turned out to be the right decision because we were forced to leave Russia.
Okay.
And the mission was completely fine and strong without us.
Wow.
Which took some not easy years in between.
Sure.
Of us stepping out and of that leadership and the others kind of taking it on. But what could be more exciting than seeing other people do better than yourself?
Yeah.
And I'll give you another example. I'm going to step on some toes here. That's what we're doing, right, Pastor Ricky?
Let's go.
Yeah. So on this radio station, we have several Calvary Chapel preachers.
Sure.
Yeah, and I love Calvary Chapel preaching. The style is chapter and verse. Chuck Smith, the founder of Calvary Chapel, does not have a primetime spot anymore.
Okay, sure.
And I had some people get really upset, and I thought, well, what is a greater legacy? Listening to his sermons again, or listening to Pancho Juarez, Terry Gray here in El Paso, some of these other guys, Raul Reese, the next generation, that really points back to Chuck Smith's legacy.
That's right.
And is honoring to him.
Oh, yeah.
I think really almost in a greater way than listening to his sermons directly.
Sure.
And I'm sure some people would disagree with me on that. But just this idea that what could be more exciting than someone else taking over, and even Hebrews 11 at the end, it's the Faith Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah.
And then it's at the end it says none of them received what was promised. Only together with us would they be made perfect. And it's like, what could be better than having this legacy where even the people who came after you, they don't even know who you are, but you're watching as that part of that great cloud of witnesses. You're watching this happen, and you played your little part in that history.
Well, and I think it goes back to what you started saying, which is that it all comes back to your identity in Christ. If your identity is in Christ, your win-loss record is not, your own personal ministry.
Yeah.
It's the win-loss record, well, really win-win record of Christ, right?
Yeah.
And the scoreboard you're looking at to judge your ministry is not, well, how long did I stay in the position? How well known was I? How many people were serving under me? It's really, did I serve the purposes of Christ? And I think it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Because it turns it from something to fear, like letting go of, to what you're describing, which is a joyful thing to see the ministry of Christ continue on to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in YWAM, which means youth without any money, I heard someone say the currency of success is not monetary. when you're a missionary or in any kind of Christian ministry, you don't really show success through money, which is what the rest of the world does. So how do you show success? By position. That's the only currency of success that you can really show. Like, they trusted me to take this on, to oversee this,
I could see that.
to have this title before my name. And so when you take that away, it's like, well, again, going back to the identity question, who am I? And I hope everyone can step out of leadership so they can find out who they are.
Oh, brother, that's a good word.
Right?
That's a really good word. And I think whether you're on the side of someone that needs to make a transition in leadership to someone else, or you're the person about to step into the role of leadership, whichever side of the equation you're on, that identity in Christ piece is so crucial. It's got to be the foundation.
Right.
Because otherwise, you're going to find your identity in something, whether it's position, whether it's money, whether it's record, whether it's whatever. And look, this isn't even just ministry, right? Any position, even as somebody transitioning at work, whether they're in banking or teaching or whatever, you're always going to, we as human beings, we crave a safe, secure identity. But the problem is we so often look outside of Christ. We're like, once I get this position, I'll have my identity. Once I get this degree, once I get this thing, once I get this, whatever, then I'll be secure.
Right.
And man, if you're starting from that place, leadership transitions are always going to be messy and difficult, right? Right? Because you're not going to want to hand off the reins to anybody because you're thinking, okay, well, what are they going to do with my legacy, with my, what I've accrued? And if you're new, man, you're going to be terrified because you're going to be thinking, well, this new position, I've got to succeed. Otherwise, what will people think of me? What about my reputation? What about, whatever. So I think it's a great word, brother. I love it.
Yeah, so a lot more to unpack through this hour. If you just joined us, we're with Pastor Ricky Alcantar. He's the pastor over at Cross of Grace Church here in El Paso. You also hear his voice on this radio station each weekday at 12:30 during your lunch hour for Better News radio broadcast. Really appreciate Pastor Ricky, Cross of Grace Church, being a part of this radio ministry's journey. We're about to go into a break. Before we go into the break, this is your daily reminder that 915 Talk is listener-supported and is a production of Desert Voice Media. To listen to this or any previous 915 Talk conversation, you can go to the website desertvoice.media. That's the website, desertvoice.media. Really appreciate you listening in and joining us on this journey as we learn to love our city and love our neighbors, give God all the glory. And as we're learning today, learning how to have strong leadership structures in our churches and really serve our community well. We're going into a break. Do not touch that dial.
We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial.
915 Talk is listener-supported and is a production of Desert Voice Media. That's right. It's people just like you who make this program possible. Together with Desert Voice, you can learn how to better serve our neighbors and pray for our community. To become a Desert Voice Media partner, you can visit desertvoice.media. That's right. That's the website, desertvoice.media. Take a look and join us today in reaching our borderland for Christ.
915.
Testify.
I got stricken with this horrible disease called multiple sclerosis, and I was given a 4-year death sentence. I said, no, I'm not going to take this. And I said, no, my God is greater. With God's help and the encouragement of my family, I did what was necessary. I did what I needed to do. Something I always wanted to do since I was 11 years old. It's getting into the Border Patrol, and I succeeded. It was a gut check and a real kick in the teeth, if you will. I had always been a sports player. Always been active since I was 3 years old in sports. And this year, I celebrate 14 years with my wife. The 14 extra years that the Lord's given me, I was able to marry my wife and have the children we have. My name is BJ Hunt. I'm from El Paso, Texas, and I give all the glory to God. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for what He did for me. And if He can do it for me, He can do it for you.
And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb
And by the word of their testimony.
desertvoice.media.
This is Pastor Steve Castrita. I'd like to extend the invitation for you to join us in service every Saturday at 5 p.m. at Redeeming Grace Church, El Paso. We are located at 2400 George Dieter inside Iglesia Philadelphia. We're a young church on the east side of El Paso with no smoke, no lasers, and no gimmicks, just the uncompromising Word of God and a call to win the 915 for Jesus Christ. We'd love to meet you and your family. God bless you, and thank you for listening to KELP.
We're back. You're listening to 915 Talk.
We are back, and you are listening to 915 Talk. I'm your host, Andy Frecka. Today we're with our good friend, Pastor Ricky Alcantar of Cross of Grace Church here in El Paso, and we're talking on the touchy issue of leadership transition, particularly for the local church. And I have a doozy of a question. It might be my favorite question I've ever asked on 915 Talk.
All right.
Yeah, so Pastor Ricky, is retirement biblical?
Is retirement biblical? Well, first I'm going to tell you my retirement plan that my wife Jen and I always talk about.
Sure.
Is at the rate of my mental decline at age 39, if we project out, okay, the way that I've aged from 30 to 39, into the next few decades, I think by age 60 I need to be in some kind of a facility that's going to care for me.
By the age of what? By 60?
60, yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I'm actually not going to be mad about it because I love routines. So, having lunch at the same time, breakfast at the same time, it actually sounds wonderful to me.
Right.
So Jen is like, well, I'm not going to do that with you.
Yeah.
Well, I said, well, I hope you'll come visit me at least, in the home. But that's my personal plan. Now, is retirement actually biblical? A couple things to think about from the Bible. First of all, we do see people serving faithfully and vigorously as long as God gives them strength and ability, right? So you think of Moses, he didn't even start leading the people of God until he's what we would consider old today, right?
Yeah.
A senior citizen.
Yes.
So sometimes we have this picture of Moses, he's like 38 and like been working out.
He has gray hair, but he looks like Charlton Heston, so he's pretty robust physically.
You're like, no, Charlton Heston in the Ten Commandments was probably a couple decades at least too young. Same thing with Abraham, right?
Right.
I love that the phrase, I think it was of Abraham, that he served the Lord and his eyes were undimmed. Like basically he had strength until the very end. And I love at Cross of Grace, at our church, we have some folks that are just full of energy, in their 70s and beyond. Yeah. And I love it. So part of the answer is retirement from being a Christian should never happen.
Right.
And retirement from Christian ministry should never happen.
Okay.
Meaning you don't get to turn, some age, 75, and then hang up your Christian, spurs, turn in your badge and say, great, I'm just going to coast until the Lord calls me home.
Right.
Now, if that's true, okay, so starting with those two assumptions, you can't retire from being a Christian or from doing Christian ministry. We have Mrs. Wheeler at our church is, I think, 80, and she is still serving in kids ministry with a bunch of kids, and I just love it,
Yeah.
So we want to see that. Now, when we talk about retirement, we're normally talking about financial. Like, should we hit an age where we have enough to live on that we don't have to keep making money? And I would say that can be wise and is often wise.
Right.
To think ahead to, okay, once you hit a certain age, you may not as easily be able to work. And here's the reality, you're either going to have something saved for that day, or you're going to have to depend on others in that day. And typically the scriptures encourage us, provide as well as we can for ourselves that we might bless others. So that would be what I would say, is I would say it would be wise to use biblical principles of financial planning and go, if possible, I would love to hit an age where I don't have to work anymore, and then can actually be more free to do Christian ministry and be a Christian. And we have a number of examples of this at Cross of Grace, just great people that have not had to work anymore, but are devoting a big chunk of their time to just serving the church. Two of our elders, on the team right now, not being paid at all, but are just freely serving.
Yeah.
One of them retired at a normal retirement age. One of them even retired earlier than a normal retirement and intentionally did not go get a job. He had enough that he was able to just kind of live and serve people.
Yeah.
Which I think, man, that's a great model. So
Very cool.
Be busy, work hard, plan ahead, and never retire from being a Christian.
Never retire from being a Christian.
Yeah.
I can't agree with that more. Yes. So the one scripture that comes to mind is Old Testament law, Numbers chapter 8. It's talking about the Levites. And I love the examples you gave, Moses and Abraham. This is what it says about the Levites. Men 25 years old or more shall come to take part in the work at the tent of meeting. But at the age of 50, they must retire from the regular service and work no longer. They may assist their brothers in performing their duties at the tent of meeting.
That's good.
But they themselves must not do the work. And I think that's interesting that I absolutely agree with what you're saying. You never retire from being a Christian. But this is what I think.
Yes.
You sometimes have to give up the position.
Oh, absolutely.
And just serve those who are now leading.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's what you were saying.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, but it's this idea that you can be totally fulfilled, kind of dropping into the background, but absolutely in a service role. And how many of us, when we were a little bit younger, would have loved to have that older guy who would just have a cup of coffee with us, tell us everything's going to be okay, clean up, do whatever needs to be done in the background, because they see those things that need to be done because you're so young and just running around and running into walls and everything. And so that you need to have that strong presence there in the background.
Well, and man, I can't agree with you enough, because my own experience is a very unusual situation. I became a senior pastor of a church, acting senior pastor at like 25, something like that. Maybe I was 24 even.
Right.
And in my case, the previous senior pastor, who was having to change positions both because of medical challenges and because, gifting and fit, he started to think, I don't know if I'm a right fit for this role. He stayed on staff with me for several years.
Wow.
As the assistant pastor, as the associate.
Yeah.
Supporting me.
Right.
And here, at the time I just thought, man, Tom is so kind. I love this guy. But the more time has gone on, the more I realized what a sacrifice that would have to be.
Right.
To be in sort of the captain's chair, and then to say, okay, now you come sit in the chair, knowing that any 24 or 25-year-old, especially me, is going to make mistakes, knowing that they're going to mess up, knowing we're going to try stuff that doesn't pan out, knowing that we don't know what we don't know yet. And I tell you what, the gift that Tom gave me in that moment is he just overwhelmed me with encouragement and strength, and reaffirming my call, and reaffirming every time I did. Here's what he was great at. It's not as though he didn't point out when I did something stupid, which was helpful, and I needed that, but he never failed to encourage me when I did something right. And I didn't always do something right, but anytime I did, he was absolutely there it is. That's it. That's how to preach, or that's how to lead. You did a great job in that meeting. And then there was stuff I didn't know. I didn't know how to show up at the hospital and minister to somebody. I didn't know how to go to somebody's house after a crisis. And he was like, okay, well then on those, you ride shotgun, I'll take the lead, you watch me, then you'll take the next one.
Yeah.
Right? And so I just think, man, I had coming into ministry, I think such a healthy and rare in some cases model of a guy who was kind of at the top of his ministry game, really say out of the going back to the identity in Christ, because his identity wasn't in his position but was in Jesus, he was able to say, I think we should swap roles. I think Ricky should take the captain's chair, and I'm going to be right alongside him trying to help him learn how to do this.
So amazing, so amazing. We're talking with Pastor Ricky Alcantar today of Cross of Grace Church here in El Paso, and we're talking about leadership transition, especially in the church. Before we continue that conversation, we have Charlie One on the phone. Charlie One, what do you see on the roads this afternoon? Did we lose Charlie One, Kenny, on the board? Did we lose Charlie One, Kenny, on the board? Okay, we're back with Ricky. Hope everyone's doing okay out there on the roads this afternoon.
Charlie called back.
He called back? Okay. Yeah, so we're back with Ricky. I don't know what happened to Charlie 1. I do hope that everyone's doing okay and trying their daily menudo at Mi Pueblito Cafe on Treywood.
I wanted an update on the menu, though.
Right. Oh, Charlie 1, you're on the phone. Is he here, Kenny, on the board? No? Okay. We're going to continue without Charlie 1, Kenny. Tell him I'm very sorry. We will get his traffic report at the end of the hour. Before we continue, though, with Pastor Ricky, I do want to give a shout out to a few of KELP Radio's impact partners. And this is the time of year when many folks are trying to figure out what to do with their kids. And so we have 3 options, basically for any age. First of all, Flying Colors Learning Center. If you have kids age 0 to 12, they have a no gadget for the little ones policy. They have a great learning situation. Their owner, Mike Hicks, is also the chairperson of the El Paso Thanksgiving Day Parade. They have 5 locations around El Paso. Go to Flying Colors Learning Center. You can find them on the KELPradio.com page under the Impact Partners section. Really good folks over there. They're all over town. Call them, get in touch with them, go over and get a tour. The other one, if you have older kids, Jesus Chapel School. They're over by Album Park on El Paso's east side. Really good folks over there. I was able to be, I preached at, what's the name of this? Restoration Fellowship, which is right there at the school. What a great community there. What a great group. My kids don't go to Jesus Chapel, but when we play them in sports, they seem like really good kids.
I love it. Yeah. That's an endorsement. That's a high-pressure character testing moment.
Because not all schools, when they're playing sports, exemplify the character of Christ.
There you go.
But Jesus Chapel, that you could really tell that they care about the kids. So you can also find Jesus Chapel in our Impact Partner section. And then for the older kids, 18 plus. If you're looking for an in-person accredited university here in the borderland, Howard Payne University in El Paso. I've met so many good folks around town who have gone through their training, their university courses. They have criminal justice, business, general studies, and of course Christian studies. So no matter your age, it's the time of year where you really need to make a decision for your kids. You might be new to town, or maybe your situation changed or whatever, but would love it if you'd at least consider those options that are out there. And we just want to say thank you to Howard Payne University, Flying Colors Learning Center, and Jesus Chapel for being a part of our journey here at this radio station. We're back with Pastor Ricky, and where do we go from here?
Well, so here's the thing. I think maybe we break it into two sections with our remaining time. Is one, I would love to just talk through a little bit of counsel I have for younger leaders.
Okay.
And that younger could mean anything from, it's your first ministry position right out of high school to even someone in their 40s or 50s taking over for somebody else as a senior pastor. Because one of the things that my story, I think I've found with my story, is taking over in my mid-20s. A lot of folks have asked for advice, like, okay, how do we do this well? What did you learn along the way? Maybe they're just hitting that leadership transition now. And I do think it's very relevant because in El Paso, in particular, I can think of a number of churches led by guys that I would say kind of in the baby boomer generation that have chosen to retire or move on or move to a different ministry assignment just in the last few years. So a number of churches have gone through these transitions.
Sure.
So that leads to not just one person having a leadership transition, but that's often a cascade of leadership transitions. Meaning you have the associate pastor, for example, that moves up. Well, then who takes their spot? Right. And maybe somebody gets hired. Well, who's going to lead their small group, or who's going to lead that teaching ministry?
Yeah.
So you have this. Every time there's a leadership transition near the top of the organization and the church or a ministry, many people go through a leadership transition. So one of the way I've tried to encapsulate some of my advice is I've got 3 things I don't think you should worry about.
3 things
that you should not worry about when you're moving into a new leadership position.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. The first one is do not worry about immediate results. Immediate results, meaning every time, somebody moves into a new leadership, you're always checking the temperature like multiple times a day. I remember being so tempted right after I became the acting senior pastor at our church
to change everything.
Well, to check the attendance every Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm like, how many people were there? Was it? Is it going down? Is it going up?
Am I better than that other guy?
Yeah. Or in my case, really, it was just panic. Like I didn't want to be the one to close down the church. I'm just hoping for the same numbers,
Yeah.
And then every time we had a big flu wave, I'd get discouraged, in January. So I think often we're tempted to take the temperature of our work too early.
And maybe too often.
Yeah, and maybe too often.
Yeah.
Thinking, it's been a month, I should be able to know how I'm doing.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. You have no idea how you're doing a month in.
Right.
So I do think, just back off. I actually had my elders stop sending me the attendance reports for a while. And I think Proverbs 31:11 has a great principle. Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Meaning the biblical principle is don't look for these big windfalls.
Yeah.
Just focus on daily faithfulness.
Enjoy
weekly.
the slow burn.
So it's first piece of advice.
Yeah.
Second thing not to worry about, don't worry about the loudest people. And I had a more you have something.
I'm laughing because when I came to the radio station, I did get some angry phone calls.
Okay, well, yeah. I mean,
because the happy people never call.
Well, and here's the challenge. Here's the challenge, Andy. This older pastor I know gave me what he calls the 10-10-80 rule.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to know what the 10-10-80 rule is?
I do want to know.
So it's this: with any change in ministry or in church life, 10% of people will love it, 10% will hate it, and 80% will be in the middle.
We'll go along with anything.
Right. Well, or just like, okay, now some of those numbers can change, but typically you'll have a section that's really excited, sometimes because they just like change. Have you ever met people that they just like any change?
I know people like that.
Excited about the change.
Yeah.
Or some people just any change, no, I don't like it.
They hate change.
I don't like the change.
Yeah.
And often, here's what this pastor I knew pointed out, that the 10% on either end are usually the loudest.
Yeah.
So either you'll be getting really specific loud critique.
Right.
And often really specific encouragement.
Yeah, and I just have to jump in there. I think this is so true, not just in church. It's like any ministry.
Oh, yeah.
Really any kind of business or work. This is such great. I mean, it's often the work of, I think it's the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's 80% of your work is for 20% of the people, and and just remembering that. So I love this.
Yeah. So that's my second piece. Don't worry about the loudest people. Actually, I found it helpful to seek out the quiet people, the people that don't normally share input.
Right.
One of the things I did is I went around to all the small groups at our church when I transitioned and just asked people, "Hey, what do you think? How do you think things are going? What are you excited about? What are you concerned about?" And it was so helpful. So that's one. And the last thing not to worry about is don't worry about every bump along the way, like it's the make or break moment. And problem here's the reality: if you take over anything in leadership, there will be roadblocks and bumps. And what I've found myself doing is every time there's a roadblock, I just thought it's over. It's over. I've killed the church.
Yeah. Well, I'm laughing because I took on responsibility of this radio station July 2nd of last year. I think it was July 3rd. We went off the air. There was an equipment failure.
Oh my goodness.
And it was like, it's over, like next day. So it's a great reminder, that not to inflate these situations or allow them to become too big in your mind.
Well, the primary metaphor for ministry work in the New Testament is planting and farming primarily, right? So any farmer knows you're going to have bad days. There's going to be difficulty. There's going to be problems. There's going to be pests. But I love the advice of Galatians 6:9 that says, "Don't let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up."
Yes.
Meaning, okay, stop worrying about the roadblock. Think about the season. Think about the year. You know. and just slowly, faithfully, that was a tough day out in the fields.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep sowing and planting.
Yeah.
And I found if you can do those things, and the reason I know those three things is I did all of those things foolishly. I worried about all of them.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, I realized I shouldn't have been worried about any of those.
Yeah, well, there's Jesus made this one phrase. It was he said this. He said, "The kingdom of God is forcefully advancing, and forceful men lay hold of it." And I have no idea what that means, but it really resonates with me. It is really my excuse for not listening to any of your advice. And it's so great to be reminded of these things, even for myself personally.
Oh, that's good, man. Okay, well, and then I've got 3 things that you should worry about. Okay. And worry mean in quotes.
Yeah.
Like Jesus says, don't worry.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Be concerned about.
Yeah. Okay.
So first,
keep these 3 things in mind.
In quotes.
Be mindful.
Yeah. Be mindful of these things.
Great,
First thing to be mindful is be mindful of your own sanctification. In the midst of leadership transitions, often you're worried about this person or this group or that thing, and often tempted not to be mindful or worry appropriately about your own sanctification of relationship with God. And I love 1 Thessalonians 4:13, which tells us, if you're wondering, what is the will of God in this ministry moment? 1 Thessalonians 4:13 says, for this is the will of God, your sanctification. Meaning we don't always know what the Lord's up to,
right?
But we know one thing he's up to, making us personally look more like Jesus.
Yes.
And so there are times where I had to realize, okay, I can't affect this person or this person or this person or this situation, but I can affect my own relationship with the Lord.
Right. And I might not be able to create those results I'm dreaming of today, but I can live a holy, pleasing, loving life in honor of our King.
Yeah. Okay, and second thing to be mindful of honoring those around you. Because Romans 12:10 says, outdo one another in showing honor. And those leadership transition moments, look, let's just be frank. Some of them are messy, right? Sometimes we have to transition because there's been sin or failure.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to transition because somebody planned poorly.
Right.
Sometimes there's a financial crisis. Sometimes, there's all these reasons, but none of those negate Romans 12:10, outdo one another in showing honor. Meaning, whenever you go in, if you're thinking a lot about yourself and what people's perception of you is, and do they respect you, and how does your record stack up against the previous one, I think that's an unhealthy place to be. But if we're regularly going, hey, we can do this because the guys before us set us up.
Yeah.
And maybe there's 4 ways in which they didn't set you up well. They set you up for failure. But that 5th way, if they set you up well, then honor the Lord and honor them for doing the work.
Right.
And I've just found that changes the if I could say the tenor and the vibe of the change.
Yeah.
Because it becomes a gracious culture,
right?
An honoring culture.
Yeah. Or even I might even tack onto that. If they didn't do super great, they did some things well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those things.
Yes, absolutely. And in many ways, we want to talk about the ministry legacies of others the way we would want people to talk about our own ministry legacies.
Yeah.
Absolutely. At some point, somebody's going to be picking through what you did in ministry.
Yeah.
What would you want their view to be?
Yeah. I mean, I think about this sometimes, if God forbid I walk outside and get run over by a truck and die, my kids going through my stuff, they will have like, what was our dad thinking? And that's true of any of us. Like, why did he make those decisions?
Yep.
Why did he do that?
Yep. No.
It's true of any of us.
Yeah, so you want to honor those around you whenever you can. And then the last thing is just, it's super simple. These are all super basic.
Yeah.
Be mindful or worry, quote unquote, about people more than programs. And the challenge is in those leadership transition moments, you're going to spend a bunch of time with job description documents. You're going to spend a bunch of time with Excel spreadsheets. You're going to spend a bunch of time with whiteboards, and drawing up things and plans and calendars. But at the end of the day, all of that should be done for the saints for which Christ died. Right? In heaven, I'm sorry to say this to some folks, but your Excel spreadsheet of the perfect budget's not going to make it into heaven with us.
Yeah.
Your ministry plan for 2025, 2026 is not going to make it.
Thank you, Lord. It's not going to make it.
Your highs and lows of 2025 will not make it.
Right.
But you know what will make it? It's really who will make it. It's the saints for whom Christ died.
Right.
Did that budget serve them? Did that calendar bless, encourage, strengthen them? Right? Did that job description get work done for the saints? And I've just found at the end of the day, we got to be open-handed about all that stuff, the plans, the work, and I think you should plan. I'm a big planner. But none of that should outweigh in our hearts and minds the saints for whom we are ministering and for whom Christ died.
Yeah.
And let me just be honest. I can so often care way more whether my ministry plan goes well this year than I care about the people in the ministry.
Right.
To be frank, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, because I want everything to work and I want it to look good on paper and I want things to, pan out. And there are times I've had to just say, you know what? We're just going to have to throw it out, start over, and help these people with where they're at right now. And so, so 3 things not to worry about and 3 things to worry about or be mindful of during those transitions.
Okay, yeah, I love this thought that I think when we look at leadership transitions, often I'm thinking about what the leader needs to do, but you're thinking about what the new leaders need to do. And I love that you've thought that through. It's probably even more important than what the leader's thinking about as he transitions out. Like, what are the new people are going to do? It's super obvious, but I haven't really thought about that. So I appreciate
we
that.
could talk, if you want to, about how do you leave the ministry well. Because we have, unfortunately, probably both of us seen examples where that hasn't been done well.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. It usually it's not done well, I would say.
Why do you think that is? I've also found that.
Yeah, I think because there's not really an understanding in church culture of how to do it, and so it can often be abrupt, or it can be abrupt because there was burnout that others didn't know about. It can be abrupt because I don't know how else to deal with this, so I'm just gonna turn in my 2-week notice after my 40 years of service.
Yeah,
and so these kind of conversations just need to be normalized to make it more healthy.
Well, and you were sharing even you think we need to learn. I was really helped by this, Andy. You're sharing you think we need to learn even generationally from what probably wasn't a good transition between the baby boomers and the Gen X.
Yeah.
Because now a lot of times millennials are the ones moving into leadership.
Right.
And then behind them, you got Gen Z and everyone else. But you were pointing out something really insightful that you think that generationally we may not have done as well as we should have with that. And so what did we not do, Andy, that we can do better?
Yeah, so I'm Gen X, and you asked me this question, you're like a couple months ago.
And I'm a millennial.
Yeah, and you really stepped on a nerve, Pastor Ricky. You said, what happened to Gen X? And it really hit me. What did happen to Gen X? Because you're right, that there are more baby boomer generation leaders in the church and more millennial. And I've come up with a wild theory. This is just my theory.
Okay, tell me.
Yeah, so the baby boomer generation went through the Jesus Revolution.
Yes.
An incredibly profound experience with God.
Okay, yeah.
And they never let it go.
I can see that.
That's my thought.
Yeah.
And I've seen that through so many organizations, including the mission I was a part of, Youth with a Mission. I've seen it in so many churches. They were not ready to give it up, and to me it's actually tragic because the right result of that powerfully profound experience with God in the 70s is to allow someone else to take it on. And the other, I'm going to tack this on. It's a little bit different, but
tell me.
The problem that I often see is the leader who is after a legacy leader in the church, say a pastor, the person they choose to take over is often actually not a leader. He's the best follower.
Oh.
He's the best person in conforming under that leader. And that's why that next leader is really not destined for success is because he's a great follower. And we absolutely need great followers in the church, because without them, there's no point in leadership.
Sure.
And one of the best leaders is that first follower.
Oh, sure.
So I don't mean to take away from that.
Sure.
But a lot of times you have to look for the person who kind of would, I'm going to use the term, would butt heads with that legacy leader.
Right. That's
really the person who can take on leadership going forward.
Yeah, well, and it's a challenge because often, the kind of person that's entrepreneurial or creative or bold or thinking out of the box, those are the guys that built a lot of these ministries that have flourished over the last 20, 30 years, 40 years at the church. And in some ways you go like, oh, that's amazing. Let's thank God for that. But one of the other impulses I've seen is, okay, well, that was amazing. Now our mission is to preserve that legacy.
Yeah.
Rather than doing what they did, which is to say, what is God doing in this generation?
Right.
And how do we become part of it?
Yeah. Because what happened during, I'm going to use the Jesus Revolution again as an example. What happened then was radical. But what's radical in 2025 is we need to do new things in new ways where new initiatives are required in order to fulfill the Great Commission, not just clone the past.
Yeah. And if you don't, I think here's the reality. I remember a friend of mine talking about how we are tempted to take these big things that God's done in the past in our church or in church history or whatever, and turn the church into a memorial to those things.
Absolutely. I have to jump in here. I was laughing with someone the other day about the Apostle Peter.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because the Mount of Transfiguration, Jesus is up, he shows his glory, Moses comes in, Elijah, and Peter's like, this is awesome, let's build a retreat center.
That's right. This is so great, let's just stay here.
Yeah, exactly. And that is the way we are. We want to build these memorials to the past, rather than continue on in the new thing that God has for us today.
Yeah. Well, and I think the challenge is you either will end up taking what God's done in the past, and I would put our own church in there. Our church has a 45-year history now. It was started in 1979, and I think we too face the temptation. We could end up looking at the great things God did and building a memorial or a monument to those things, rather than taking the best parts of it as a model for a future movement.
Yeah, the values and the principles rather than the preferences.
Right. Yeah, because the world is different than it was in 79.
Yeah.
What the Lord is doing today, some principles are absolutely unchanging. He's still building the church. He's still reaching the lost.
We are still to live holy lives, pleasing to our Lord.
All that stuff is the same.
Yeah.
But the specific ways in which we minister and reach and teach and serve and care, those are going to be different.
Right.
And I think that's a good caution. Anytime we start to codify the practices of the previous generation, rather than capturing the principles of the previous generation, that's the problem.
Yeah, because you look at the Jesus Revolution, they stopped wearing choir robes.
Right.
That was so crazy.
Right.
And now it's something different.
Right. And then for example, that style of music or that style of worship.
Right.
We could go, okay, well, that's the style now. That's it. It's got to be exactly like that. Yeah. And rather than going, okay, what were the principles?
Right. Of moving away from the pipe organ and having guitars and
why
drums.
did they make that change?
Right.
And how can we, learn from those things? Instead, we go, I've seen churches do all kinds of things. I remember going into a friend's church one time, and they had like a table of like sort of artifacts. And if you have a table of artifacts, it's great, at your church. But they had a number of like sort of church-related artifacts, like a crown of thorns and like a shofar and like all these things. And I asked them, oh, that's interesting, man. Who, where'd this table come from? And they were like, I don't know where it came from. Well, who put it there? We don't know. What are these objects for? No one's really sure. Then why don't you just move them? They're like, well, because some people would get mad, but you're kind of realizing, okay, somehow we kept the externals, but we don't know the purpose. Like some good-hearted person obviously put this together and put this here, but we've now memorialized, what the Lord was not intending for us to do.
Right.
Rather than going, man, what was the heart of this person? What were they trying to do?
Right.
And let's honor that rather than, this.
Right.
And they were always trying to keep the kids from picking up the shofar or the thorn crown. It's just, and so we don't want to do that.
Right. So I feel like I have 100 funny stories related to that, but we only have a couple minutes left. So Pastor Ricky of Cross of Grace Church in El Paso, you personally are aging.
I am.
And in the 2 minutes that we have left, what are your personal thoughts on yourself during this time as you get old?
Okay, so
you're 40 now? Or are you
I'm
40?
almost
40.
And let me just say this. I was joking with somebody recently that as a 10-year-old, I never imagined I would be 40. You remember being 10 and going, that's so old. I'll never be that. And then realizing, oh, that's me now. The people I thought were old as a kid, that's me.
Right.
And one of the things that I think happens as I've aged is I've been surprised by it. Mm-hmm. I know I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
But I've been surprised by all the changes. I'm not as easily fit as I used to be. I have aches and pains. Anytime you have multiple doctors in your phone, like I have a gastroenterologist, a pain specialist,
yes.
we don't need to name
all
we don't
the
know all of them. Like once you have established relationships with thick records, you go, okay, my life's changing a little bit. And I've realized, my dad likes to say this, and he's older than I am. He says, either as you age, you get better as a Christian, or you get bitter as a person. And meaning you either begin to fossilize and get cynical and cold, or you realize every day, every year is one step closer to glory, right? It's one step closer to Jesus, one step closer to that well done by God's grace.
Right.
And which of those realities do you end up looking backward at the past, because that's the temptation as you age, or do you look forward to what's yet to come with Christ? And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be like my dad when I grew up.
Yeah. And as you age, do you allow those situations to soften your heart?
Yeah.
The old story of the boiling water with the egg in it and the carrot, and one of them gets softer and one of them gets harder. Which one are you going to be? And love those thoughts. Love those thoughts. Thank you, Pastor Ricky, for coming in today. Really appreciate your friendship. Always appreciate these conversations with you. And in August, we'll have another conversation. We'll talk about the bunions.
Well, not the foot bunions, the John Bunyan.
The John Bunyan in Pilgrim's Progress. But I do hope that this conversation is challenging, thought-provoking as we learn to serve our community better as the church with a big C here in El Paso. So really appreciate you coming in. And as we always say, let's learn to love our city, love our neighbor, and give God all the glory. This has been 915 Talk.
Hey, 915 Talk listeners, streaming worldwide.
We start looking at biological systems and approaching them from an engineering standpoint.
And he had a tiger as his pet. That little boy was me.
From Mafia Princess to God's Princess.
You hear about God, but you don't ever see God. Jesus was there all along.
DesertVoice.media.
Christians are called to be ambassadors of truth.
And let's learn to love our city, love our neighbor, and give God all the glory. This has been 915 Talk, broadcasting every weekday from 4 to 5 p.m.